I can still recall the instant as if it had just occurred. I was standing near the company's beverage station, adding a splash of almond milk to my morning coffee, when Alex, the recently appointed chief executive and son of the company's founder, entered the break area. He offered no greeting, no smile. He simply looked at me as though I were a piece of furniture he intended to discard. "Caleb, I need you in my office immediately." It was not a request. I had dedicated nearly 11 years to this organization. During that period, I had established the client relations division from its inception, negotiated over 100 agreements, and trained the majority of the personnel who now sat just outside his office portal. Yet, none of that held significance for Alex. His father, Mr. Harrison, had built the enterprise through determination and allegiance. Alex inherited the title and seemingly believed it granted him the authority to dictate fate. I followed him, attempting to dispel the tension accumulating in my chest. He didn't even take a seat. "You are terminated," he stated, his voice flat and devoid of feeling. "We have no need for unproductive individuals like you impeding progress." I blinked, initially thinking it was some kind of cruel jest. "Pardon me, you heard me," he responded casually, leafing through a stack of documents as if deciding on his midday meal. "You may gather your belongings and depart." Effective at once, I stared at him, astonished. My heart hammered in my ears. I longed to yell, to defend myself, to demand an explanation. But instead, I offered a smile, a calm, courteous, deliberate smile. "Understood," I replied. "Have a pleasant day, Alex." I exited his office with my head held high, though internally I was trembling. My colleagues glanced at me as I passed, sensing something was amiss. A few began to rise, prepared to inquire, but I subtly shook my head. "Don't complicate this further." I cleared my workspace in silence. As I drove toward home, memories flooded my consciousness. 11 years. 11. I had devoted more time to this company than to my own kin. Late evenings, working through holidays, taking calls while suppressing tears after my separation. I gave them everything. And now I was dismissed as if I were insignificant, but I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was intrigued. Why? That question lingered with me throughout the night. I barely slept. Something about the manner in which Alex had spoken it, so assuredly, so thoughtlessly, felt wrong. The timing was peculiar as well. We were on the verge of finalizing one of the company's most significant contracts, an agreement I had spent 6 months preparing. I understood the client thoroughly. I had even scheduled the final review meeting for that Friday. And now I was gone. Had he even reviewed the contract specifics? The following morning, just after 9 a.m., my phone vibrated. I didn't recognize the contact number. I allowed it to ring, uncertain if I could withstand another setback. But curiosity prevailed once more. "Caleb, it's Mr. Harrison." The voice sent a shock through me. The true CEO, the man who had hired me 11 years prior after a single discussion. "I just arrived at the office," he said, and I could detect the strain in his voice. "Why on earth did you pack up and leave?" "What transpired?" I hesitated. "Your son dismissed me." Silence. Then, with a sharp intake of breath, "What?" "Yesterday, he stated I was unproductive and that I was no longer required." There was an extended pause before he spoke again, this time slowly, as if striving to remain composed. "Caleb, did he examine your contract?" I furrowed my brow. "What do you mean? He is scheduled to finalize the sterling agreement today, is he not?" "Yes, our meeting was set for 11. Good heavens. I could hear papers rustling in the background, then a heavy impact, as if he'd struck something on his desk. "Caleb, your contract contains a provision," he stated, one I insisted upon after the Iron Peak incident. "You are not merely the account manager, you are the sole authorized negotiator for the sterling agreement." I froze. "He cannot conclude the deal without you," Mr. Harrison continued. "Not legally, not ethically, not even practically. That contract will collapse unless you are present." A gradual realization settled within me. He hadn't read it. Alex had no comprehension of what he'd done. And that was the moment something within me shifted. The betrayal still stung. Yes, but now I felt something entirely different: authority. He had acted far too hastily, and now the weapon was aimed at himself. Mr. Harrison ended the call without another word. I could sense his anger through the subsequent silence. I sat motionless in my apartment, my coffee cooling beside me, staring blankly. He didn't know. His son had fired me without even reviewing the contract. I leaned back on the sofa and let out a quiet, bitter chuckle. After 11 years, this was the outcome. Undone by a pampered, impulsive young man attempting to play CEO, making decisions as if they were moves in a digital game. But real companies do not recover from poor judgment, and this one was about to discover that the hard way. I was unsure what would happen next. A part of me wanted to dress and appear at the office simply to witness the unfolding consequences. But another part, the one that had endured years of unappreciated overtime and swallowed my pride more times than I could count, desired to let them suffer the repercussions. I did not have to wait long. At 10:13 a.m., I received another call. This time it was Alex. I allowed it to go to voicemail. A minute later, another call, this one from the front desk. Then legal. Then accounting. I watched my phone as it buzzed incessantly, illuminating like a festive display. I did not answer a single one. The voicemail notification blinked at me, persistent. I accessed it. "Caleb, hello, it's Alex." His voice was strained. "Listen, there was a misunderstanding yesterday. I may have acted too quickly. We require your presence back today. It's critical. Please contact me." Critical. The word echoed in my mind like a sphere in a container. He hadn't offered an apology. Not once. Not even in a superficial corporate manner. Instead, it was panic disguised as courtesy. I took a sip of my cold coffee, still remaining on the sofa. At 10:32, my phone vibrated again. This time, a number I hadn't stored in years: Natalie, a former colleague. We had become close when she was in my division, before she transferred to marketing. I answered. "Caleb, you won't believe what is occurring here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Attempt me. Alex was just severely reprimanded by his father. Like, in front of everyone." The conference room was full. Mr. Harrison entered and slammed the sterling agreement onto the table. I raised an eyebrow. He brought the contract. "Oh, yes." And he posed one question: "Did you read this before dismissing Caleb?" And Alex attempted to dissemble, said something about initiating a new direction and re-evaluating roles, but Mr. Harrison didn't accept it. He turned to the clause you consistently mentioned, the one that states you are the sole negotiator on the sterling account. That clause was included for a reason. I am aware. Everyone is aware. Except Alex. She paused for a moment. I could hear office chatter in the background. "Caleb," he appeared pale. Like, spectral pale. He realized he is the reason sterling is about to withdraw. I exhaled slowly. "And what did Mr. Harrison say?" "He informed him that if this agreement fails, your position here becomes subject to negotiation." I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. There it was, the initial fissure in Alex's defense. "I don't know what you are contemplating," Natalie added, "but whatever it is, you hold the advantage now." I concluded the call with a gentle thank you, then stood and gazed out the window. The city view was calm, motionless. I always found solace in that, the city indifferent to human turmoil, proceeding as usual. At 11:15, another message arrived, this time from Mr. Harrison himself. "Caleb, I am sincerely regretful for what transpired. I misjudged the situation. Please come in, not solely for the agreement, but so we can converse privately." It was enticing, but I was not prepared to simply return as if nothing had happened. Not yet. Alex's error was not merely about a contract, it was about respect, about trust, and about the years I had contributed, years that could not be replaced by a frantic phone call and a seat at a negotiation table. Still, something stirred within me. I was not a vindictive person. But I was not weak either. I did not seek retribution, I sought accountability. I picked up my phone and finally responded, not with a call, but a message: I will consider returning to finalize the Sterling agreement, but only under specific stipulations. I would like to speak with Mr. Harrison directly beforehand. I pressed send. Then I changed out of my loungewear and began to prepare. By the time I reached the office, it was just past noon. I did not use the staff entrance. I walked through the main reception area like a visitor, a move I knew would attract notice. Everyone was aware I had been dismissed the previous day. My return now was more than a quiet re-entry, it was a declaration. The receptionist rose the moment she saw me. "Mr. Davies?" "Caleb," she stammered. "Mr. Harrison is expecting you. This way, please." As I followed her down the corridor, I observed that the atmosphere had shifted. People looked up from their workstations. Conversation ceased. There was a sense of quiet anticipation. As if the building itself was holding its breath, Mr. Harrison was standing at the entrance to his office when I arrived. He was not smiling. "Caleb," he said, nodding. "Thank you for coming in." I nodded back, but did not offer my hand. He stepped aside, allowing me to precede him into the office. There was a moment of silence as I took a seat across from his large oak desk. He closed the door behind him, leaned against it, and let out a prolonged sigh. "I made a misstep," he began. "A significant one. I granted my son too much authority, too rapidly. I wished for him to demonstrate his capability, but I did not anticipate him destroying relationships before even learning how to cultivate them." I remained silent. He sat down. His voice softened. "What he did to you was unprofessional, disrespectful, and frankly, it endangered an agreement we have worked over half a year to secure." I nodded slowly. "Yes, it did. I reviewed the contract again this morning. Every phrase. You were granted complete autonomy over the Sterling account. Legally, the client will not recognize anyone else as a representative of this company during negotiations. That provision was implemented after the Iron Peak incident." "I recall it well, as do I," said quietly. "I was the one who managed the repercussions." His eyes met mine. "You did not deserve what happened yesterday," he said. "And I would like to offer you your position back, with full authority to conclude the agreement. Whatever conditions you require, we will accommodate them." There was sincerity in his tone, regret as well. But this was not solely about the agreement. It was about leadership, accountability, dignity. "I will return," I said, "but I require everything in writing. A revised contract, clear autonomy over Sterling, and no interference from Alex." He nodded immediately. "Agreed, and one final matter," I added, my voice firm. "This cannot recur. Not to me. Not to anyone." An extended silence ensued. Then he gave me a slow, contemplative nod. "You have my assurance." With that, I rose. The instant I stepped out of his office, I could see Alex standing down the hall, arms folded, feigning deep conversation with a junior executive. But his eyes fixed on mine the moment I appeared. I did not flinch. I did not look away. I walked directly past him, and I swear, for a second, I witnessed the precise moment he realized his command was diminishing. By 1 p.m., the conference room was prepared. The Sterling team had just arrived, and we had approximately 30 minutes before the formal meeting. I reviewed the documents one last time, confirming all the points we had previously negotiated. Their CEO, Mr. J, was a pragmatic man with keen instincts. He valued trust above all, and any hint of internal disorganization would cause him to withdraw. As I placed the printed Arabic translation of the final terms onto the table, I caught sight of Alex pacing outside the glass walls of the meeting room like a confined animal. Mr. Harrison stepped out to intercept him. Their muffled voices escalated quickly until Mr. Harrison's hand rose, silencing him. Alex's face turned scarlet. He glanced over his shoulder at me with a mixture of fury and shame. Then he walked away. That was the last time I saw him that day. At 1:30 sharp, Mr. J entered with his assistants. I greeted him in Arabic, and his eyes brightened. He smiled, a rare expression from him. "You remembered," he said warmly. "Respect is highly valued." The meeting commenced. It proceeded flawlessly. 2 hours later, we exchanged handshakes and signed the agreement. After they departed, Mr. Harrison approached me again. This time, his expression showed genuine relief. "You rescued us," he said, "and I owe you more than an apology. You owe your company a leader," I replied. "One who comprehends the distinction between authority and responsibility." He did not dispute this. Later that evening, as I walked to my vehicle, the tension I had carried for the past 48 hours finally began to dissipate. I had returned, not as an employee, but as someone who recognized his worth and insisted upon its acknowledgement. But I also understood this was not finished. Alex may have been subdued today, but men like him do not vanish, they retreat and then they retaliate. By the subsequent week, the Sterling Agreement had been featured prominently in our industry publication. A breakthrough in international negotiations, it read. Harrison Company secures a landmark partnership with Middle Eastern distributor through customized approach and multilingual expertise. They did not mention me by name, but everyone in the company knew who had finalized that agreement. My inbox was inundated with quiet commendations, internal messages from staff who had remained silent during the upheaval. Some were from junior personnel I had mentored years ago, others were from managers who had previously disregarded me in meetings but now lauded my leadership under duress. I appreciated their sentiments, but I was not naive. I understood how quickly people adapt when circumstances change. The atmosphere around the office had lightened. There were smiles, laughter once more in the break area. Mr. Harrison had made it clear Alex was no longer involved in significant decision-making until further notice. And yet, I could not shake the feeling that something was amiss. Minor incidents began to occur. First, it was the expense reports. The reimbursement for my travel to the Sterling meeting was delayed. Then, documents I had submitted for authorization were returned to me without a signature, lacking explanation. Next, an email I never sent, purportedly from my account, was flagged by the IT department. It contained inaccurate client details and had been forwarded to one of our overseas associates. Fortunately, the associate was someone with whom I had a good rapport, and he contacted me directly for clarification. But the error had already sown doubt. I reported it to our internal systems team. They stated there was no evidence of external intrusion. The message had originated from within the office. That was when I knew Alex was responsible. He was no longer attempting to dismiss me, that strategy had failed. Now he sought to make me appear incompetent, to gradually, subtly damage my reputation until I either resigned in frustration or someone else deemed me a liability. It was classic corporate manipulation. And it was not the first time I had witnessed it. Earlier in my career, fresh out of university, I worked under a director who employed similar tactics. He would not confront you directly, but he would restrict your resources, isolate you from projects, quietly undermine your standing until the only remaining option was to depart. But I was not 22 anymore. I was not going to disappear. I documented everything. Every missed communication, every error I had not committed, every hold-up. I had learned the hard way that written records are more potent than emotions in such environments. I even began using a personal journal, noting times, dates, and conversations, just in case. Then one afternoon, I overheard something that validated my suspicions. I was passing the conference room when I heard Alex's voice inside, too loud for a private discussion. "He is unstable," he said. "Since his return, he has been erratic, aggressive. I do not believe he is capable of managing high-pressure clients." I halted. "I am merely suggesting," he continued, "perhaps we should begin considering succession planning for client relations." "He is clearly overwhelmed," another voice responded, someone I did not recognize, a more recent executive. Perhaps, but the sterling agreement, he accomplished that under significant pressure, Alex scoffed. He was fortunate. We cannot operate a company based on luck. I stood frozen for a few moments, then quietly moved away. My blood ran cold, not from fear, but from the chilling precision of his methods. He was planting seeds again, contaminating the environment. That evening, I remained late. The office was quiet, the corridors dimly lit. I sat alone in the glass meeting room, gazing at the city lights, wondering how many more conflicts I would have to face simply to perform my duties. And then a voice interrupted the silence. "Still here?" I looked up. It was Mr. Harrison. "I could pose the same question to you," I replied. He stepped inside, placed a folder on the table. "Your revised contract, containing everything we agreed upon." I opened it, read through the wording. It was sound. I nodded in approval. "I have also initiated an internal investigation," he added. "Too many items have been misplaced recently." I looked up sharply. He met my gaze. "I am not oblivious, Caleb. I know Alex is not finished. Why have you not stopped him?" I inquired. There was an extended pause before he responded. Because I needed to observe how far he would go." He sounded weary, more like a father than a CEO at that moment. "You are safeguarding the company," I said. He shook his head slowly. "I am attempting to protect both of you. But perhaps it is too late for one of you." I closed the folder. "I do not require protection. I need you to decide what kind of legacy you wish to establish." His eyes lingered on mine, then he turned and departed. And I knew something more significant was imminent. The office felt colder that week, not due to the weather, but because the atmosphere between people had altered. Conversations lowered to whispers when I passed. Some employees smiled at me, others avoided eye contact entirely. The internal investigation had commenced, and everyone was aware. People were apprehensive. As was I. I had not requested Mr. Harrison to launch an investigation, but deep down I was relieved that he had. I needed the truth revealed, not just for myself, but for everyone who had been cautious since Alex assumed control. Still, I understood how this dynamic functioned in corporations. Truth does not always result in justice. Sometimes it leads to quiet departures and severance packages. Sometimes it is concealed so deeply behind bureaucracy that the damage becomes irreversible. That Thursday, I was summoned to the audit committee's temporary office, a former storage area converted into a strategy room. Files were piled on tables, monitors displayed data, and a whiteboard was covered with timelines and digital trails. Mark, the lead internal auditor, greeted me. "Caleb, thank you for attending. We would like to ask you a few questions regarding some recent anomalies." I nodded and took a seat. He displayed a file on the screen. "First, this email that appeared to originate from your account. We have confirmed it was dispatched from a shared workstation near the break area. The credentials were manually entered, so someone accessed my login." He shook his head. "No, someone possessed your credentials. Copied them, most likely. This was not phishing, it was internal." I folded my arms. "I reported that incident the day it occurred." He offered a tight smile. "Yes, and we are pleased you did. We discovered a few others similar to it. Emails revised, spreadsheets altered, approvals removed. Always traced to shared machines, always under your name." The weight in my chest intensified. "This was orchestrated." Mark hesitated. "Yes, and we have narrowed down the list of individuals who had access. We have also noted unusual patterns linked to Alex's executive assistant's login." I remained still. He continued cautiously. "We are not making accusations yet. But there is a clear pattern of deliberate disruption intended to discredit you, and possibly others." I clenched my jaw. "So what happens now?" "That is where it becomes complex," he said. "Mr. Harrison requested us to present our findings directly to him. He has made it clear he desires the complete truth, unedited." I nodded slowly. Then I will be present. Mark raised his eyebrows. You are not required. I will be present, I reiterated. If this is going to surface, I wish to face everyone. He did not object. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the others who had left quietly over the past year, skilled employees in their 30s and 40s who had simply moved on without much fanfare, individuals who had once been considered promising talents. I used to believe it was simply turnover. Now I wondered how many of them had been subtly forced out by Alex's schemes. I arrived early at the executive boardroom the next morning. Mr. Harrison was already there, gazing out the window like a man awaiting the final outcome. Mark and 2 other auditors came in next. Then Alex arrived, 10 minutes late, looking self-satisfied, phone in hand, not a hint of concern on his face until he saw me. He paused at the entrance. He is not on the audit committee. Mr. Harrison did not turn. He is here at my request. Alex shifted his weight uncomfortably. This is supposed to be internal, confidential. Then you should have maintained its confidentiality when you utilized company resources to fabricate communications, I said, my voice calm but sharp. Alex scoffed. That is preposterous, Mark spoke up. We have traced multiple login attempts connected to your assistant's account, all linked to irregularities targeting Caleb's work. There is a clear timeline. Alex's expression began to change, his practiced smugness dissolving. You are speculating. He is simply resentful about being dismissed. I looked him directly in the eye. You did not dismiss me, Alex. You undermined me. And you nearly jeopardized the most significant agreement this company has secured in 5 years. Mr. Harrison finally turned. I offered you an opportunity, he said quietly. I offered you more than one. And you have done nothing but dismantle the individuals attempting to construct something genuine here. Alex's bravado faltered. This is not what you perceive. No, Mr. Harrison interrupted. It is worse. A heavy silence filled the room. Then Mr. Harrison stood. The board will review this report. Until then, you are suspended, effective immediately. Alex opened his mouth to protest, but the words never emerged. He looked at me one final time, this time not with fury, but with disbelief, as if he had finally comprehended that none of his usual maneuvers would rescue him now. He exited in silence. I remained behind. Mr. Harrison exhaled, his shoulders drooping. I failed him, he said, as a leader, and perhaps as a parent. You cannot lead someone who refuses to develop, I said quietly. But you can lead the company. You still possess that choice. He looked at me, then nodded. And for the first time since this entire ordeal commenced, I felt the burden begin to lift. 2 weeks had passed since the audit meeting, but the impact of that morning still resonated throughout every part of the building. Alex had not returned, and the once arrogant smirk he wore like a symbol was now the subject of hushed office conversations. The board acted swiftly. The evidence was too compelling, too detailed, too condemning to disregard. The falsified emails, the login trails, the unexplained disappearance of files, the attempt to weaponize human resources complaints, all under Alex's direction or through individuals he manipulated. When the final report was issued, it was evident Alex had not simply attempted to sabotage me. He had compromised the integrity of the organization itself. His suspension became a termination. The official announcement cited violations of ethical conduct and internal misconduct. No legal proceedings, no press release, just a quiet departure through the corporate back exit. But word spread nonetheless. I anticipated feeling triumphant when I heard the news. Instead, I felt calm. Not victorious, just stable, as if I had weathered the storm and could now finally breathe. A few days later, Mr. Harrison summoned me to his office. Close the door, he instructed. I complied. He sat at his desk, a folder before him, but he did not open it immediately. I have spent considerable time reflecting on everything that has transpired, he began, and what I envisioned this company becoming in the future. I did not speak. I allowed him to continue. You have demonstrated more leadership in the past month than most executives exhibit in an entire career. You safeguarded our most significant agreement, maintained your composure during a public humiliation, and navigated personal attacks with professionalism. That is the kind of individual I desire assisting in the management of this company." He slid the folder across the desk. Inside was a promotion letter, Director of Client Strategy, an executive-level position, one that reported directly to him. I looked up, surprised. "I did not request this, I am aware," he said. "That is why you merit it." I hesitated, then gave him a small nod. "If I accept this, I require input on how we proceed. I do not wish to merely hold a title, I wish to rebuild this culture correctly." He smiled. "That is precisely what I hoped you would say." One afternoon, while walking through the office, I passed the glass wall that had once enclosed the sterling negotiation. I paused for a moment, remembering everything: the sabotage, the call, the panic, the eventual triumph. That single agreement had altered the trajectory of my career. But the real transformation occurred the moment I smiled at Alex and walked out of his office, refusing to plead. That was the turning point, not because I surrendered, but because I understood my value, and I refused to allow anyone, the CEO's son or not, to take that from me again.